but for those who don't know, we started a little group on the south end of town called the South End, the Belmar South End Association, Belmar City. Steve, sorry you have to listen to this again, but Steve, it was a concept that Steve's dad, Neil, Big Neil, a lot of you know Big Neil, he was a science teacher in North Arlington for a long time, and he, you know, I'd say at least 15 or 20 years ago, he said, you know, we really need to get the south end of town like singing out of the same songbook, because they need to know who we are, they need to know, you know, how much collective taxes we pay, you know, ideally how many votes does that translate into, right, because votes matter. So, you know, after Sandy, we talked about it before Sandy, right, but after Sandy, it became all the more important. So, so we started collecting names, addresses, and primarily email addresses. And I think right now, the last count, we were well over 100 people that have some sort of stake or interest. I'm trying to do some correlation into how many homes does that represent, and how much in tax revenue does that represent, and how much in collective valuation of those homes does that represent, because those are important metrics that need to be tracked to get traction and get attention. But I think right now the politicians, and I'm not just talking about at the local level, politicians are going to be more interested in what can we do to try to get support and get voted in or get voted out, as the case may be. So anyway, Belmar City got formed, and it's catching on. The primary reason is Lake Como has to get fixed. The lake needs to get fixed. It's a threat to our livelihoods, our homes, our property. A lot of people didn't have money to elevate, so they repaired in place. And they remain at risk, and good friends of ours in the neighborhood, you know, over $100,000 here and $100,000 there to repair without going up, because, you know, they can't. It's a huge project and costs a lot of money, and, you know, if the lake could get fixed, part of that threat would, I'm not saying another Sandy, but I'm saying like a half Sandy could cause, you know, some significant devastation too. What happens is it's a basin, the water gets trapped. It's got nowhere to go. So the only way out is, and Colleen, I believe, is going to speak to it tonight, is to bring in manual pumps and pump the water back over Ocean Avenue, or under Ocean Avenue, as the case may be, get it back to the ocean. There's a single sewer grate there now that connects to a 24-inch outfall pipe that is beginning to fail. It used to drain the lake 24 hours a day. It's only draining during low tide cycle right now, and it only drains the fastest at dead low. So at slack tide, the water's not exiting that lake near at the rate that it needs to. To try to help that situation, and it was through Peter Pyro's efforts, coordinating with Spring Lake and a SMRSA solution, they cut out, there was only a way for water to get in that faced the west. So openings were cut into the concrete on the north and south side, so the exit flow rate now during low tide has been increased significantly. Not that that has been used yet, because the level of the lake is the lowest that I've ever seen it in a number of years. I mean, I don't know if anyone in this room could recall the lake ever being lower than it is right now. I can't. So in any case, there's two things, and Colleen's going to speak to them. I'll step aside rather than bore everyone too much with some of the technical details. But we do believe that the lake needs to be dredged, and a new additional pipe or a new larger pipe in place of the existing pipe needs to get done. There's a proposed engineering, there's an engineering proposal that the town engineer, Paul Calabrese, put together, and the cost of that is about $1.5 million. So the latest news regarding trying to get that funding is when Christie came to town, the mayor was nice enough to get me some access to Christie before the meeting, which I mentioned it to him, like literally, I said it was like Ralphie on Christmas Story. Lake Como, you know, Lake Como, as I get shuffled off. But he knows about Lake Como, and then Martha Maselko was the last question of the day for people who were at the town hall meeting, and and thank God she did, because I was really hoping that somebody from the group was gonna call attention to it. So Christy knows about it. He's put me, Peter Pyro, and a couple other people in touch with the Monmouth County freeholders. It's Freeholder Curley and Freeholder Arnone. And then also direct contact with the DEP Commissioner, Bob Martins. So it appears that through this group that we might be able to somehow see what happens with this grant. Apparently the Sandy funds are going to be flowing through Monmouth County. I would not be fully informing everybody if I didn't say one of the big problems we have with trying to get this lake fixed is it's owned by 3 towns. Belmar is probably most at risk, followed by Lake Como, and then lastly, I understand that Spring Lake is 21 inches higher than our side of the lake, so the threat on their end is a lot less than the threat on our end, and unfortunately, a lot of the remediation work is going to have to be done on what's considered Spring Lake property. So trying to get the 3 towns to figure out how to get the long-term solution funded and resolved is going to be an issue. So before I turn it over to Colleen, I just 2 other things that I need to let everybody know. For those who didn't get my email, Matt called me before the meeting, and he is not going to be able to make it tonight. I was very disappointed because, you know, I think him hearing from you folks was one of the main drivers of having to have the meeting tonight, and he can't make it. And the reason why is his daughter's in a play, and he and his wife didn't coordinate their schedules properly, and I don't think, I'll just not question that reason. I think that's I just wish, if I had known sooner, we probably would have rescheduled this entire meeting and not had it tonight, but it was too late.
Mark, I think that's indicative of the way Matt actually thinks of the southeast end of town. And I really think that a very strong point should be made that he didn't show up here.
I agree with it.
All I could, you know, I mean, people could read into it what they will. You know, I'm not happy that he wasn't able to make it, and this was scheduled well in advance, but it is what it is. So, so there's that, and then Colleen's going to give some information out, and then we've got our community police officer here, because at the last time we all got together, there were some questions and conversations about that, so the community policing program could be discussed. And in addition to the lake, and Colleen, tell me if I'm wrong, in addition to updates, all the updates and information that you ever want to know about the lake beyond whatever I told you, Colleen's going to talk about the beach replenishment, which for people who have been down on the south end, they can see the machinery is actually getting in place. So hopefully, you know, it's going to within the next week or 2, we're going to get
started.
a much bigger beach. And then also you see the water pipes have moved down into our end of town, and more information going around that, followed by discussion about the community police officer. And when all that's done, open discussion for things, Bruce, like you're raising, or that we want to put about. We do want to try to cover that. And we may have a special guest tonight. He's not here yet, is he? Frank from DJ's called me before the meeting, and he said, "Would you mind if I came?" Well, Frank's interested. Well, honestly, he's a homeowner and resident like we are. And he's interested in getting the lake fixed. And I said, well, don't be surprised if people have other things besides the lake that they want to talk about. So anyway, with that, you know, Colleen, do I put you on the spot, or are you ready to go?
I put on the spot usually.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Colleen Conley. I am your business administrator for Belmar. So thank you for inviting me to come tonight. And I certainly heard a couple comments about the mayor and this evening. I can tell you, he has a family event tonight. He was unable to reschedule it, and he was very sorry he wasn't able to attend. But he's asked me, obviously, to try to do my best in his stead. So it's been, you know, it's been, I think we're at 535 days since the storm. Just kind of a stark number to look at when we still have many of our residents who aren't home. many of our residents who are struggling with funding to repair and elevate their homes. Many of you are caught up in that, and I don't have to tell you how frustrating some of this process has been. How are you? No, not at all, please come in. I've had many conversations over the last 500 so days. Many of them surround Lake Como, both in terms of the repetitive flooding issues that exist there that were separate from Sandy. We have had numerous conversations with our partners at state. When I talk about partners at state, I'm talking primarily about the Department of Environmental Protection. Mayor Doherty and I were there, I'm going to say it was about 2 weeks ago. We met with Assistant Commissioner Sakurka, several members of their Stormwater and Water Safety Bureau. That group was convened by the Commissioner to meet with us, members of Lake Como government and members of Spring Lake government, to talk about potential funding. I don't need to explain, I'm sure you all know how a little additionally complicated the issue of the lake management is because it's multi-jurisdictional. That doesn't mean a whole lot to you other than it means it takes a little longer for us to get solutions. But what I can tell you is that I'm very happy that this administration has a very strong relationship with Spring Lake and with Lake Como. The partners have worked very closely together, at least since I've been here, and I really honestly came a couple weeks before the storm. So since the storm, I've been involved very actively, hi ma'am, come on in, with the administrators of Spring Lake, Lake Como, and their mayors. And I have some updates on those conversations that I wanted to share with you again tonight. Mark illustrated, and he's absolutely right, that there is a proposed solution which provides a longer-term flooding mitigation solution for Lake Como, which is a large outfall pipe installed to replace the failed one that is there now. It would run under Ocean Avenue. It would be at an elevation that would allow it to flow by way of gravity. Right now, when we see a threat coming, it's really beholden on us, the administrators of the towns, to get together, order the pumps, and you've all seen this choreographed orchestration, getting them in place on the lake head, draping the intake into the lake, closing down Ocean Avenue until very recently, and then pumping into the ocean. That requires a lot of, sometimes almost magical forethought to understand when that threat is coming. And so at times it very rightfully feels like a reactive measure, because we are reacting. We see that storm coming, we see the rainfall happening, we know what we're going to get in from Wall and Spring Lake Heights. And so it takes 2 days to order pumps. These are some of the inherent problems that makes the current management of that lake inefficient. Now, what we did last year, and Peter Pyro, Mark, you were involved as well, was we finally memorialized this relationship amongst the three towns. We have an interlocal agreement that designates for each town who's in a decision-making capacity to spend money to pump out Silver Lake. Why that was important was because it was the first step in proving to state and other authorities that these towns are vested in a solution.
What about Lake Como?
Yes, Lake Como. Did I not say Lake
You
Como?
said Silver Lake.
Friday.
That's a fraudulent slip.
Lake Como, Spring Lake, and ourselves. So what that does is it puts in a mechanism that all of those towns share in the cost of these pumps coming in to mitigate that hazard. What it did was lay the groundwork for not only proving to state and authorities that we're working together, but to give us a mechanism for these longer-term solutions moving forward. So just 1 week ago, the mayor of Spring Lake, Lake Como, and Belmar met with their administrators, and we have our first kind of action plan under that agreement, which is all three towns will share in providing for a more permanent solution for the pumps that have to happen until the long-term solution is arrived at. So what we are going to do is from the Spring Lake side, create an easier accessed area. It'll probably be a crushed gravel driveway, for lack of a better word, that will lead us to a concrete pad. We're in conversations with several pumping companies. What we experienced after the storm was that it's supply and demand. These pumping companies understood that closer to a storm they could get a higher price. And while we were, quote, first on the waiting list with several different pumping companies, what we often found was another town offered to pay a higher rate, we lost our pumps, we went scrambling, okay? So what we're doing now is we're having conversations with County of Monmouth and also several pumping companies to see if we can negotiate a predetermined, these pumps are designated for Lake Como. And so when a crisis is coming or when that hazard is coming, we would automatically have access to those pumps. They would be brought in, put into place at that pad prior to the lake getting saturated and that area being infiltrated, and we could start that pumping immediately. Now we don't need to close down Ocean Avenue. We can hook into those gooseneck pumps, the pipes that you see running on our Ocean Avenue. What that does is gives us kind of a cleaner, safer way to approach this without shutting down roads, without having pipe draped all over the place. So that's at least something. And again, that's short term. That still puts us in a reactive position, but it prepares us at least a bit better for each high rain event that we see coming. So that's good. The proposal Mark talked about was actually one designed by borough engineer Paul Calabrese that Mark mentioned. This was in the days after Hurricane Sandy. We knew that this pumping solution was never going to work long term. Paul designed this solution of a larger outflow pipe that would be gravity fed. It would provide a continuous ability to keep up with that stormwater infiltration that's coming. I don't have to tell you, we're one of 3 owners of this lake perimeter. We have the smallest share and the maximum impact. So we have, yes sir?
Oh, then why is ours all messed up with that berm there where you can't even walk around the lake? You have to walk in the street. And you know what? In the summertime, that's going to be a dangerous situation.
I understand, yeah, and
Ours is the only town.
that we haven't had that walking path on.
Chucky, if you don't mind aesthetic stuff, I mean, let's make note of it at the end for like questions.
Oh, and I'm happy to take suggestions, yeah.
No, but the aesthetic stuff for right now, it's important and needs to be dealt with, but it's offline to the drainage situation, which is really what's causing the flooding. But there is some things relative to the dredging that might help with aesthetics as well.
Were you here last year for the storm we had? That was acting as a dam, and the water was backing up the streets.
There's a lot of different theories as to how to solve it, but until we have an exit pipe that works, nothing's gonna happen. Like you could talk about, in any case, I just don't wanna change gears
Sure.
until
No, I
we're
appreciate
done
that.
talking about the proposal to
Yeah.
create some additional drainage.
Sure,
Okay.
thank you. So what we did was after the storm, our engineer designed this larger pipe that would run under the road and provide that automatic drainage that would happen. That is still, as far as I can measure, the best attainable long-term solution, both in terms of commonsensical engineering. You want something that's gravity fed, you don't want to have to rely on generators, power to pump out those waters. You want it to react immediately as the floodwaters start coming in. It's also fairly economical. There was a time in my life that I didn't think I'd call $1.5 million economical, but it is.
Colleen, I'd like to add, because there's some misinformation out there, and what drives me crazy, it's all well-intentioned, and I don't think it's done in any ill spirit, but the misinformation doesn't help, right? There's been some rumors going around that a new inlet is gonna be created underneath Ocean Avenue that's gonna allow the ocean water to enter and exit, as that might be a solution. We do not need or want an inlet, we want an outlet only.
Only
We do
go
not
out.
want ocean water coming into the lake. It's a stormwater lake runoff for acres and acres of surrounding property. We only want it to go out.
Yes.
So to that end, the existing pipe, water does flow both ways. However, the systolic pressure of the water resists the ocean water from entering it, at least for now. At some point, that point in which it pushes back is going to keep creeping closer to the lake, where at some point it actually is going to let ocean water in. It's going to stop having the outward pressure, and inward pressure is going to wind up salt water that will ultimately enter that lake. The pipe that's being designed is going to have a backflow on it, like your sump pump lines do, where if pressure is felt coming back this way, a flap closes and no water will enter back in, so it will be a one-way exit. And please, no discussion of inlets being created, bridges on Ocean Avenue, all these kind of solutions that people think they've engineered on their own. There's no basis in truth or fact. The only thing that does have some credibility that the engineer did discuss is what he calls a culvert or a runoff. And the easiest way for me to explain this is if you go to any new development that has a stormwater area, that they have a primary outlet where the water drains out, and then if for whatever reason that primary outlet gets compromised, blocked, or can't do it, there's a culvert runoff that's typically like gravel surrounded by like chicken wire, and then that becomes a spillway that if the detention basin ever exceeds, the spillway kicks in. So there is, or some concept of the potential to have a spillway, but I think maybe none of us will be here by the time a proposal such as that has to get engineered to actually fix this. What we really need right now is like a 36-inch main at the proper pitch and distance and at the proper elevation to back up the existing pipe where it is right now, so when the existing pipe doesn't catch up, this new pipe is going to kick in. The only thing that is controversial is the discussion as to whether a second pipe gets put in and leaves the existing, or the new pipe goes in at 36 inches on the same exact footprint that the current 24-inch pipe goes in. I hope that that's not too complicated for people, but I do want truth and fact to separate from opinion and conjecture.
Yes, thank you.
And the truth is, it's a 3-foot pipe that's going to drain out to the ocean as our primary objective.
And Mark mentioned a very important thing that I was just about to get to, which is too, is one of the additional challenges that we have at Lake Como, and a lot of these coastal lakes have, is that we are discharging into the Atlantic Ocean, which has wave force and action that we are met with. So that's one reason, why the gravity line is so important, so that we have that force to basically go out at low tide. The gates and the valve that Mark mentioned are equally important, because during a surge, or during extremely high tide, you're going to see that ocean wanting to come in through that pipe. So the solution has two valves, for lack of a better word. One is a check valve, which basically is a flap that you're familiar with in sump pumps and things of that sort. So as the wave action tries to come back in, it would shut. In case that fails, there is a manual gate that we would close. The reason why you want two is because the check valve can work all by itself, but if it breaks, you want the other one. And I personally, who run a great town, run a great DPW, I don't want us to have to leave that closing of that gate necessarily up to human error, okay? So the storm's coming, close the gate, but if, God forbid, 10 years from now somebody forgets to close that thing, you've still got your check valve to help you out. Okay. Yes?
Am I correct in what you're saying, that there is no pumping, other than no electrical pumping, shall I say, going on with this? It's all gravity fed. And when you have a high tide and you have this surge pushing back, and you've got this flap closed because it's pushing back, you haven't got water going out then.
Well, so part of what we do when we're preparing for high water storms, and storms and high water rainstorms are very different from storms. Oh, are we okay? Okay.
Yeah, wait.
Okay, good. You know, and I'll be very brutally honest. Another Hurricane Sandy comes, any of the things that I've just mentioned, that we've just talked about, aren't going to help us a whole lot in the short term. When that ocean wants to come in,
let me just add to that comment,
Yeah.
right? So this Sandy, the water came on the west side of Ocean Avenue and got trapped in the basin that we call our neighborhood, okay? There was no way for that water to escape. The outfall pipe was blocked with sand, the lake filled up, inlet, a relatively new inlet got cut right between our neighbors' houses, south of the Seidels and the Frangillos, and cut right through. And that water couldn't get out, and that's why it took days of manual pumping over Ocean Avenue to get it back out. In the event we do get a new or additional pipe, it will be worlds faster of draining the lake. And you know, the Sandy catastrophes notwithstanding, I mean, at some point, if that's what we're going to measure everything against, we've got to be careful, because like I'm saying, well, a half Sandy is still going to be devastating for most people. I mean, instead of having, 36 inches of water in your house, maybe you only get 12. Oh, geez, wasn't anywhere near what Sandy was, but it's still 12 inches of water in your house. So we just have to be careful about any sort of comparison. At the end of the day, in 2005, we had an upstream event that flooded the entire neighborhood with fresh water that had nothing to do with Sandy, or had nothing to do with really even bad or terrible. I mean, it was rainy, but it certainly wasn't rainy to the point that the entire neighborhood should have flooded the way that it did. So even in that event, a working pipe would have either kept that flooding to a minimal level, or at worst case, it would have drained out a hell of a lot faster than what it did.
Yeah.
So anyway, and it's both, right? It's manual pumps plus this 36-inch Mother Main that's gonna drain that water out is gonna happen a lot faster than if it's just the manual pumps alone, so.
Right, and I think that's, you know, again, why we draw these distinctions between how these storms behave. I can tell you that when we secure funding and we implement the project with the 3-foot pipe, it doesn't mean I'm not going to lose sleep every time that we have a high water storm coming. It doesn't mean I'm gonna lose sleep every time we have a hurricane coming. You know, we will not abandon the very necessary protocols that help us to get water out when the ocean is fighting us, which is industrial pumps. You know, we do, and some of the measures I talked about initially in terms of creating a more stable pad area, utilizing those pipes that go under Ocean Avenue. What we're also talking about is that 3-foot pipe that goes in, being able to hook into that and force main it out. So, you know, again, you know, we're learning. We've made some improvements that we think with the additional funding and the engineered solution will get us a better package. Will it be perfect? No. But it will put us in a much better position to protect your property, to protect your homes, protect you. Okay. So Mark, actually, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mark. He's been a really phenomenal advocate and a great voice to add. Mayor Doherty is in constant conversation with the Department of Environmental Protection, our partners at county, and Mark has been this kind of great amplifier of that voice. So thank you, Mark. It's been really wonderful. It's been great. It helps miles for us to show the authorities that this is not just the squawking of a local mayor. This is something that's vital to a community. And certainly, you know, what happened during Sandy has allowed us to have a certain increased access to decision makers who can help direct funding to us. So I want to thank Mark and thank all of you, because I know that you've been to a bunch of meetings and certainly have invested a lot of time and a lot of money in what has impacted your properties.
So Colleen, if we could, I want to open up to questions about the lake, but since the question as the aesthetics came up,
Sure.
I know it was a minor project and it's better than having done nothing, but a lot of people don't think it went near far enough in
Sure.
trying to fix what's actually
Yeah.
bad down there. And also, I'm going to be very objective with this. People need to understand what part of the lake is Belmar, what part of the lake is Lake Como, what part of the lake is Spring Lake, because I don't think, I think people don't care, but it cares when you're using your workers on another town's land. There's liability questions, there's cross issues of permission. You can't just go fix the Spring Lake part of the lake and they're gonna say thanks. There's matters involved, so, you know, these are, it shouldn't matter, but it does. And you gotta respect the laws and the sovereignty of each particular municipality, whether we like it or not. So can you talk about the aesthetics and
Sure.
if there's any way for the 3 towns to try to do something to make it look better?
Yeah.
Because it really is just a wasteland right now.
No, it is, and you know, I certainly, all of us here at the borough know that I hate using the word beautification, but I think that I'm struggling to have something else to come up with it. But the appropriate management landscaping of the lake, thank you,
Thanks.
thanks, thank you, the lake banks, is something that obviously each town has a vested interest in. They're kind of wedged, no matter how big or small that is, but it's something that we can do together a lot smarter than we have before. The signing of that interlocal agreement, again, gives us that mechanism to start making decisions jointly and sharing costs jointly. So again, that's a positive of us signing that interlocal. This has been something that we know going into this budget year is a priority for us. You know, and you know, the effort that went forth last year was really an opportunity where we knew we could gather some dune grass, we could gather some volunteers, and try to hit out there and make something a little bit better than what it was. It was by no means all that's coming. So, you know, I'm very happy to hear suggestions about walking paths, about benches, about how we can make this a more appropriately nice place to walk and, you know, raise your family and enjoy. So I'm happy to take all sorts of suggestions from you on that.
Could you just tell us what the borders are? I mean, I always think of the borders as kind of the borders of the town. Obviously, there's probably a little bit of a distinction needed when it comes to the Ocean Avenue
Sure.
area, but it seems like much of this, probably 90% of the mud that we see today is in our town.
The lake head is predominant, so if you think of where the lake ends and draw a line, the majority of that is owned by Spring Lake. Belmar, if I had to quantify it, would put that at about maybe 30%.
It's not the gates, like
Yeah.
everybody thinks. It's well south of the gates, the Spring Lake line.
Yeah, and I have an aerial in my office. If I get a second, I'll run and get it, and you can see where the lines
All
are.
right, I'm sorry.
I don't,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right.
Up to approximately B Street. Yeah. Sir?
I really would like to emphasize that I believe most of us here know where the Belmar area is. I'd also like to point out that Lake Como, which is almost renowned for not having money to do anything, built a gazebo, and you can trace where Spring Lake is and where Lake Como ends, and everything in between that doesn't have anything done
Right.
is Belmar.
Right.
And when we finally started making a point about the fact that the lake had not been touched at all, while Silver Lake had been redone entirely, we got some seagrass. Now, so the point is, not where the thing ends and where it begins. I'd like to know what the schedule is to put the pipes in, and I really think that at least we could put a walking path, because the point that was made about people walking down the middle of the street
No, it's available,
is absolutely correct.
And I like the suggestion about the walking path, so yes, absolutely, we'll take that in, take that to heart. And I'd love to give you a schedule for the pipes. I would love to
hear
right
it.
now give you a schedule for that pipe. You know, we are pursuing any avenue of funding that is available to us. I can tell you Belmar is the only one of the surrounding towns, and this was before we had the interlocal, that started applying for grants. So we are actively pursuing anyone who's willing to give us money, lend us money. Now that we have the interlocal, we're not just solely on the hook for the solution, which is good. But you know, a lot of these mechanisms of funding, if you proceed with the work before getting an award, the work is deemed ineligible. So again, we're not going to wait ad nauseum for funding, but we are having many active conversations now about how to identify that, whether it's through a grant or whether it's through a loan with the Environmental Infrastructure Trust. So again, these are things we're actively pursuing to try to get us to that schedule.
Colleen, I have a question on the funding. The Silver Lake project was funded with the municipal bond, is that
Yes,
correct? And
yes,
so
it is.
there's no reimbursement, that's 100%
No.
borne by the town of Belmar and the
Correct.
taxpayers of Belmar, right?
Correct.
Let's just assume that nobody's gonna stand up to give the funding. And by the way, everyone should know, Monmouth County, there's gonna be reluctance on their part because there's 18 total coastal lakes. So if they start remediating this one, there's 17 others that the other municipalities are gonna wanna have. So don't think Monmouth County is necessarily gonna be that anxious to come through with money for us. But assuming that there is no money,
Mhm.
how would it be possible for the three towns to municipally fund this project? And if that's true, and we're really only talking about something in the neighborhood of 500,000 per town,
Sure.
under perfect conditions,
Mhm.
and assuming they all get approved, and I know that's not even, that is not a lot of money on a
No.
per town basis to protect the assets that are in this basin area
Yes.
that I'm talking about. I mean, why don't we just start going there, or at least having that at the ready?
We've started
that
having
you
those
keep in your
conversations.
drawer,
Mhm.
and then, you know, open it up, open
Sure.
that envelope when the last note comes through. But we can't wait 5 to 10 years
No,
to get the final no. And at some point, like, I think temperatures are rising, have risen now faster than water, that, you know, the north end of town got fixed. And this end of town, it's three town situation, can't be used as a reason for inactivity.
Right.
So, anyway.
May I ask
At the
you,
last-
please, I understood at one point that the Army Corps of Engineers was going to be working through these lakes, these many inland, you know, islands, or not islands, but, you know, close to the ocean lakes, and that they were going to be doing something. Is that
Not that's been funded.
They talked about it, but they didn't.
They have several projects that they know they want to do. They have
I'm
mentioned the
sorry,
coastal
there was
lakes.
a question about 1.5 million split between the three towns that didn't get allowed to be
Sure, I'm
answered, so.
So, let me back up. So at our last conversation amongst the three towns, we did talk about potentially how we would proceed with either fronting the costs or financing it entirely amongst the three towns. Belmar is in a position where, certainly, and as I started out saying, I never thought I'd say $1.5 million was a reasonable price, but when you look at some of the other solutions out there, it is reasonable, and then when you cut it up three ways, it gets even more reasonable. So what we would do is work with the other three towns to simultaneously pass that funding, so it would be through a bond, have one of the towns, could be Belmar, act as the lead town for that project, and the other towns would reimburse us.
All right, so that said, could you commission somebody to do a cost allocation of the $1.5 million, study it, right? Because it's not gonna be 500,000 each, right? So, and probably Spring Lake has the least risk, and therefore they should probably pay the least of the 1.5 million, right? Could you get some sort of at least justification underway that would allocate the 1.5 million as to how much each municipality should be responsible for, and at least as a stopgap, or at some point that allocation is gonna be useful to you, to either divide up the money or
Yeah.
figure out who's gonna pay what.
Yeah.
I would imagine, even though we have the smallest amount of the lake, that geographic designation is not adequate for the risk, the property risk that's surrounding, right?
Yes. And we have a lot of data actually that we've already assembled with that in mind. So as we've had conversations with the county with regards to the hazard mitigation plan and how we're approaching it, we've exhibited a lot of data about the repetitive flooding loss that impacts Belmar versus
Okay,
impacts.
so let me tell you, and I'm
Como.
sorry, some of this stuff, it's hard to put your head around, but if we could strategically say Belmar should be 50% responsible at 750,000, and Lake Como should be, 30% responsible, and Spring Lake 20% responsible, right? And if we fund our 50%, right, and the council passes that, that we're good to go, and now we could go hard at Lake Como and Spring Lake, and then when one of those signs on, then those ones that signed on, go to the one that's holding out, and if we have to get the funding that way, that
Yes.
becomes like the lobbying
Yes.
that maybe the state will have to do to say, hey, listen, two towns are ready to go, and you're not.
Right.
Because at some point, everyone's not gonna jump in the pool at $500,000,
Correct.
so,
Correct.
anyway.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. So Army Corps, ma'am? Yeah, so they had talked about addressing all of the coastal lakes, or at least several of them. The information I have is that has not been funded. So, sir?
Just on the design of the outfall pipe, the 36-inch outfall pipe, other than, let's say, the redesign of the beach itself, is there anything built in, any protection against the significant storm surge? That's one. And the second question is there anything built in to prevent the buildup of sand that interrupted the outfall pipe
Sure.
from functioning last time?
I'll be happy to take the second one first, if that's okay, just because it's freshest on my mind. You're correct, and that's part of the challenge that we face whenever we have to outfall or pump into the ocean. You have that wave action, you have the likely sand impaction, and so any installation of that pipe would also have to be accompanied by routine maintenance. And so that is flushing of that pipe, ensuring that it's being backed. I can tell you that the existing pipe suffered from rather prolonged neglect, had damage in some areas. Those damaged areas have been fixed, but that's part of what led to that sand compaction. So whatever is constructed out there, which is anticipated to be the 3-foot pipe, would have to be accompanied with a maintenance agreement. Again, that pipe right now, and where the proposed pipe is actually on Spring Lake. But the maintenance agreement that would go with the installation of this pipe would also have to be governed by that agreement.
Okay, so the problem last time with sand compaction was not necessarily just the result of the storm, but a period of neglect and maintenance.
Its story, unfortunately, is not unlike many of the outfall pipes that are along these coastal lakes. They're old, they're undersized, they're of the inaccurate length into the ocean. Some of them may be cracked. And so I can tell you that, you know, my understanding of the condition of this pipe at the time of Hurricane Sandy, it wasn't functioning properly even in the course of normal business. And then when you added something like the Sandy storm surge, forget about it. Your first question, which I thought I was being smart by asking your second one first, but now remind me.
Is there anything in the design of the outfall pipe as protecting any kind of significant storm surge other than, or is that dependent upon beach redesign?
Some of it was dependent upon beach redesign. What we did this past winter season, I know you're all probably very familiar with, which was actually a really old concept, which is pile up the sand and make a berm. There are towns all over the world that live on the coast that do this and have for hundreds and hundreds of years. We were able to acquire through a military surplus program that our police department helped us to ensure we had adequate equipment for getting these big bulldozers that you see down there. What that does is puts us a lot more in control of our own destiny. So building up that additional berm, making sure that it wraps around and connects to the existing wall at Ocean Avenue, honestly is a very smart and practical way for us to ensure that during the high storm season that we have that additional level of protection. I'd rather see that berm above my head than, again, be losing sleep wondering if the Ocean Avenue is going to reach the road. But no, there's not anything beyond the movement of sand planned in this solution. Councilman?
Hi, I'm Councilman Bean, everybody. There's a fourth party to this, and that's Smyrna. Smyrna Sewer Authority. And the reason why they're affected is that because when our lake backs up and floods, they flood, and then all the sewer system shuts down. Everything stops. So they're really pushing to get something solved here. What I suggested was, why can't they take control of this lake? It's in their best interest to keep it pumped, to keep it clean. When something goes wrong, 3 towns don't have to come together and come to a decision. They can come out and do what they need to do. And the best part is, when I presented this, I was at their meetings, they said, ha ha ha, Wall doesn't want to pay for this. And I said, look, you guys got 5 customers or 6 customers, 6 towns. You put a surcharge on 3 of those towns, Spring Lake, Lake Como, and us, to pay for this Lake Como pumping, this Lake Como dredging. And
yeah, Jim, we're also getting Walls water and Spring Lake Heights water, so they should bill them too, you know.
Right, and you guys are paying for the Silver Lake project. Silver Lake should be paying for you guys. It should be done through a surcharge, and then a percentage of that surcharge. So that's just a different way of looking at it. That's what I would propose. And one entity is responsible.
We went through that. The current 3-party agreement was at one point a 4-party agreement that involves Smyrna, and they were signed up to take the lead on that. And I think what happened is they suddenly realized what the long-term responsibility was, and they turned around and said they wanted $2 million in back costs for the pumping that they did during Hurricane Sandy, and that cleaned that out. They are coming around a little more. We've kept active in their meetings, and they're coming around more to be a participant in this. But they originally signed up to be the lead organization and backed away when they realized the size, the magnitude of that problem.
I did ask them, in the past, they have taken out bonds and gotten projects done, and then billed the customers to pay off those bonds. It has been done in the past.
Yeah, there's no reason why this can't be done outside, and I think that's a good idea. And I'm a little confused now, because as Lake Como having been defined as a dam, the responsibility for maintenance of that dam falls on the municipality in which the equipment for the dam operation is located. That happens to be a good whatever it is, Spring Lake. It's all in Spring Lake. Since I have lived here in 1998, there has never been an operational muse working on in Lake Como. They've abrogated their responsibilities completely. And every time somebody says we want to fix something, Spring Lake is the first Pontius Pilate in line. So, you know, Mark, I understand what you're saying in terms of the risk, but the easiest thing for us to do is to build a seawall on our side that's higher than theirs. That way, they're gonna get in line and get it.
Bruce, let me please try, just so everyone could understand, right? Because these are very valid points, right? However, those kinds of approaches, and, you know, I know you're saying it jokingly, but it's antagonistic in terms of if we're trying to cooperate with Spring Lake and get them, to try to stick it to them to say that they own the dam means nothing's gonna happen, right? So let's get real about a cooperative three-town solution here and not start creating that sort of conversation. I will also venture to say our involvement with the DEP is twofold. I believe DEP has greater control over the dams in the state, and we may get some leverage through them to get some dam management, right? Also, the threat, the environmental threat of SMRSA running over untreated sewage into the lake becomes another environmental threat. So that's why Christie is pointing us to Bob Martin, right? And Bob Martin, through the DEP, can go to the county and get down to us. So, you know, understand, we gotta be very careful here and not worry, you know, about this. The allocation is just a way in which you can get to the next step. If we don't get some sugar daddy that comes and gives us the money, right, which I'm not banking on, I'd rather the municipalities fund it tomorrow and raise our taxes, whatever's necessary, okay? But, you know, if we keep playing this game of chicken, in 10 years, we're gonna be talking about, because no one's coming to us with money anytime soon.
I entirely agree,
And
Mark.
so-
I think you're absolutely right, and your approach is correct. But I believe
And,
that
you know, if I was Spring
factually,
Lake and 21-inch higher and not having the flood damage or the groundswell of public opinion, they're not gonna be motivated to do it. So at some point, we gotta step up to a percentage of that 1.5 million, which isn't necessarily 33%, own it, get it done, get it passed, get it funded, and then start moving to the next town who has to do the same thing, because it is gonna take 3 towns to get individual funding for the roll your own approach. There's no way around that.
Well, and I really feel the need to offer as well. I mean, a lot of the work that we have done, at least in my tenure here, and this is Matt's and my approach to this, which is it much better behooves all of us to develop very good working relationships with the administrations of these other towns, that we can get a lot more done when we're not fighting each other and going to state and having one of us speak against the other's interests. And I can tell you that consistently what has happened is when I go to the governor's office, when I go to the Department of Environmental Protection, I don't go unless I have Spring Lake and Lake Como with me. And so, again, we have worked very hard to develop that 3-town agreement, because we know that unless we have that, we're not going to get any help from the state. We're not going to see any grants flowing in because of the multi-jurisdictional problem. You had a question?
Well, you know, I was just gonna say,
Are you gonna let
check
Shaq- are
out.
you gonna let
Sure.
Shaq-
I'm sorry, I thought I saw his fanfare first, but
My hand's been up for some time.
okay.
Just 2 questions, Colleen. Number one, the 1.5 million, how firm is that, and what kind of range could we expect? Because, you know, things are never exactly what the guesstimates are, and, you know, the Silver Lake ended up being quite a bit more than what we originally had
Actually,
envisioned.
it came in much less than what the engineer's estimate was.
Oh, really?
What
Well,
he was referring to is
well, we
an
bonded
engineering
1.8 million, but the original estimate was like 1.2 million, but how much did we end up spending on
The bids
that?
came in at 1.3.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, good, okay.
So what David's referring to is an engineering's estimate, which is at the time the solution is designed, we ask our engineers to put a price tag on it. And they go foot by foot, linear foot by quantity, and come up with an estimate. We need this in order to bond for any money. We need this to go after any grants. And, you know, the stark reality is you don't know what the market will bear until you know what the market will bear, and that's when you go out to bid. And so you had a project like the Belmar Boardwalk, which was engineered estimated $17 million. Came in well under 10. And so, you know, what that is, it's an idea. It gives you something to plan for. It's not the set price. We could get great prices. We could also get pretty stiff prices and not be looking at a 1.5. It could be a 1.8. It could be a 2.1. What I find is that the engineers are typically fairly close to the mark, boardwalk project notwithstanding, but at least that went in our favor. So yes, what
Good.
David's referring to is that's the initial engineering estimate.
Okay, thank you. Just one other thing I want to ask about is, I did attend a couple of SMRSA meetings about this, and what they were presenting was that it was actually for a really permanent solution, and they envisioned it being many years off, but having, you know, a bridge with a spillway and a real big infrastructure project. And my question is that if they were eventually going to somehow go ahead with a bigger engineering solution to it, would what we put there with this outflow pipe, would that be in the way, or would that have to be taken out of there?
I'm
Or?
not an engineer.
Can I, let me try to just give an answer, okay? I spoke to Paul Calabrese. He said he's comfortable within the $1.5 million budget. He can deal with this solution, which would take us for years into the future, except for what the rising ocean mean tide might mean 50 years from now, if you believe there's such thing as global climate change, which some people don't believe in, okay? But you can't argue that the oceans are rising, and for some reason they are. That's data and that's factual, and it's not up for scientific debate, okay? Questions like you're asking are all thought through in all these cases. So for us in this meeting to worry about some future spillway and bridge that might be built and will the pipe get in the way is not focusing on getting the damn pipe in now,
No,
right? So let's not that's like a red herring that's thrown out there that isn't really helping move the ball forward, all right, or down the field, right?
No, I
So
just want to say, Mark, at this kind of price, I think we should really go ahead full steam.
I appreciate
this.
that, and I just really like, it's an $18 million project that's SMRSA blue sky, right? Get it off the table, don't distract people with that, because it's gonna scare people away. If you go talk to Freeholder Curley and Freeholder Arnone, and say, you know, we're asking for 1.5 million, but we got this 18 million thing hanging out here. Do you think they're gonna really take your $1.5 million
Yeah,
proposal
but
seriously?
you were at that meeting that
I was
at,
absolutely at
and,
the meeting,
you know, there was
and
nothing
he's
like this
right,
presented
He's right,
there.
and that's like a 500, like a 100-year, or 500, a 100-year plan, and, or, you know, we've got an immediate threat like next season, right? And get things dug and pipes put in now is for 1.5 million. I mean, look at that's why, when I started the meeting, if you guys, maybe the connection wasn't made, but now is a good time. The property value of your homes and land, the collective value in what I'm calling the basin, right? If we add that up, and then we add the tax revenues that are associated to it, and then we correlate voters to that, and we go to the county and state with that data, okay? We're 1.5 million is gonna seem like a bargain. And you go to FEMA with it, right? To say for 1.5 million, you add up how much FEMA paid out across that basin, right? So all of these factors are the way in which this gets done. Now, I would hope that the elected leaders do it, and me as a guy who's trying to, you know, still hold down a job and make a living, I don't have to do this while I'm at work where my employer's paying for me to go figure out all this data. But somebody has to take responsibility for getting that information together, getting it in front of people's faces, and at the end of the day, it's gonna be votes. And the only thing we've done here is we've got some groundswell, some call me a community organizer, if you will, if that's a bad name. But we've got a groundswell of people. I think without even trying, we're well over 100 people. For the most part residents, for the most part voters. I think in a blink we could go to 200, 300 people, right? And we're all not going to be in agreement with everything, right? But no one's arguing the need to fix the lake, and that's where my frustration is that there's not one person that doesn't say this needs to be done, yet we can't get it done. And that's really, and I'm going to say it, I was really hoping that Matt was going to come. My communication to Matt is it's time to stop talking about it and time to start doing it, even if somebody has to write the check. Colleen, I'll challenge you. If I took out my checkbook and I wrote a $1.5 million check, you're still not going to get it in. You're still not going to get in because it's not just about getting the money. The whole plan has to get put together. Because if we had a benefactor who came in and wrote a $1.5 million check, I don't think shovels are gonna be in the ground for any time soon anyway.
I don't agree with that.
Well, in any case, if that's the case, then should we do a fundraiser, buy a board, and get 1.5 million and get our lake
I'm open
fixed?
to all suggestions, and
Well,
I'm not looking to have an argument
No,
actually
I'm
about
sorry,
this.
I'm
This
getting
is a
heated
town
about
that
it because
is-
it's 1.5 million, it's not a lot of
Yes,
money.
and this is again, this is.
Assess all of us. Everyone in this room would spend $1,000 each, right?
Yeah, Mark, that's not a fair characterization, that if there's some magic money landed, that the project's still gonna get.
All right, well then, let's get the magic money then.
Yes, we're trying.
No,
Yes.
but we gotta get creative.
Well, you know,
The analysis you just talked about the south end and boulders, et cetera, what was the effect on the north end? Because my thing is, I think comparatively, I'm seeing a lot of new houses being built in the south end.
for this
We were ground zero for this storm.
Yeah.
But the town itself is willing to spend 1.5 million or 1.2 million to make the homeowners safe at the north end. And yet, even though just as many people were affected at the south end, we have to fight with 2 other towns. You know what? Spend the same money at our end of town.
Okay, guys.
So why is that on the table? Why is a $1.5 million bond issue for Belmar to fix this pipe, and don't worry about Spring Lake, don't worry about Lake Como? Why are we in this game of chicken with the grantors of the money and to save like 1.5 million that was done without even a blip on the north end? It doesn't make any sense.
Mark,
No,
6
it's
million,
not.
7 million is on for this Tuesday meeting bond, 7 million bond.
For the pavilion.
For the pavilions. We're bonding 7 million this coming
I don't
Tuesday.
think the pavilion should come in front of getting the
I
pipe.
agree.
You know, you have homeowners, Colleen, we've gone through this, not only Sandy, but even before you came.
Irene,
We
Irene,
had a lot of
05.
trouble. We don't
Right,
even
you
get,
saw-
no offense, we get nothing down at the south end of town. We don't, you guys are not around that much, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but honestly, it's like we're the neglected part of town, and it's always now your realtors too, the desirable north end. That is so offensive to us. I've lived here for 40 years in the undesirable south
Only,
end.
only if you live
It's
north of
awful.
10th Avenue, you get something done.
We don't get
South of
anything
10th
done.
Avenue, you get absolutely nothing.
or they're gonna give you all your bar.
Thank you. Isn't that impressive?
Get drunk every night.
Real impressive.
If I could, Mark has done an excellent job of organizing us and getting us here and focusing on the real issues. And between he and Peter, they've done an excellent job of bringing the necessary officials into the project. And nobody is more vociferous about their frustration than I am. But I think that their approach is going to be what's going to net us a real result. And we all have to kind of try to throttle back the frustration. I mean, I spit on the sidewalk every time I go to Spring Lake just to get even with them. Mark's approach is what's going to work.
Have done more to help us than anybody in the 40 years I've lived here.
They have been
They
remarkable
just
advocates, and
really
they
did a
continue to
lot.
be.
Yeah.
And they're an absolutely vital partner to all of this happening. Everyone, listen, I hear the frustrations. I'm happy to absorb them. I'm happy to have anger directed in me. I don't have thin skin.
It's not your
No, but I'm saying, I'm happy to be that, okay? What I can tell you, and what my mission has been since the storm, is to march forward to recovery for the entire town. And it has been to march forward to recovery for our beachfront, for our homeowners, and to also not lose sight of the vital infrastructure work that needs to happen, that needed to happen prior to Sandy. You know, one of the topics I did want to brief you on tonight are about all those ghastly pipes running down all of your streets right now.
As long as it works.
And so, again, I'm happy to absorb frustration. I'm happy to accept ideas, suggestions on all levels. Please, send it on. I have my card here. I have the mayor's card here. send us emails, drop us a line. I do want to talk about some of the infrastructure work that's in progress right now, because a lot of that's affecting your daily life, especially if it's, I really hope it's not cold anymore, because the frozen bypasses are just a nightmare. But I wanted to talk a bit about all of that. And again, I'll make sure my card is widely distributed. I have some other information. The other couple topics I wanted to touch on while we're all here together is the beach replenishment operation and also lighting on Ocean Avenue, because I have some new information to share there as well. I've asked our community police officers, thank you both so much for coming, and they're going to be here to address concerns a little closer to the end of the meeting. So before, I don't want to leave the lake topic yet, so anybody, I know you had your hand up, sir, did you get a chance to?
Did they finish the outflow pipe to the inlet?
No,
Oh, so that wasn't
has not
included.
broken ground yet. Will
So
very
they
soon.
did, they have the money for that? They can go
Yes.
5 blocks that way?
There was a, right.
And they can't go a couple hundred feet?
Well, and again, and I'm not gonna belabor this, you guys have lived this song a lot longer than I've been singing it, but with Silver Lake, some of the things that are different is that it is one jurisdictional, one town does have control over that lake. 2, there is an option to expel an outfall into water that is not, does not experience high wave action. So by going under A Street to the Shark River Inlet, it provides a much more reliable solution. So again, listen, I am not a fan for drawing comparisons between the lakes. They are such different animals. But I hear your frustrations. Please know it's not falling on deaf ears. Yes, sir.
Well, the point he was making also is, and it sounds like Belmar does control this, is what is planned for beautifying our section of that lake. Because right now it still looks like it did kind of when Sandy hit.
We're
We
sure.
control that. We don't have to cooperate with other towns. So
We
the question
absolutely
is, and let's tie it together with, you have a bunch of people saying South End kind of gets screwed, North End, so we control that. So my question is, what are we actually physically going to do and when to make that better?
Part of it is I do need your suggestions. I would like some more input from all of you. We went with the dune grass there, because again, I had an opportunity to get some dune grass. I had an opportunity to get some rocks. I had volunteers on hand, and it was honestly, sometimes decisions are made kind of quickly. That was, I found out on a Tuesday I could get the stuff, and I think by Friday afternoon we were out there. It doesn't mean it was the perfect solution or the long-term solution. The soil that's there is very sandy, so that is one of the challenges, which you can improve by mulching. So part of it is the aesthetic that we think the residents would like to have down there. Is it a dune grass area that looks much more like a beach scene? Is it typical grass with maybe a crushed tinder walking area? So again, I'd really like to hear some of your thoughts. We're heading into this budget year. We're trying to formulate everything that we can do within our general operating budget. And we're going to be making those decisions over the next couple of weeks.
How was Silver Lake decided? I mean, was it a big group growth, or did you decide what to do?
Silver Lake was,
I mean, the beautification.
sure, largely it was replacing what was lost. And so at Silver Lake, you did have that crushed tinder path, and you did have the seed landscaping. We made a couple of changes to it. Part of it was a wildflower seed mowing area, so that would reduce on mowing that would have to happen. It's also healthier for the lake. So again, we're open to those kinds of suggestions to not just bring back what we lost, but improve it in some way. So what would you like to see there?
I haven't really thought about it, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I just think it's something within our control.
It is.
And
You're
it might go
absolutely
a
right.
long way to kind of proving to people
Sure.
that we're interested in putting a little bit of money in instead of
Yeah.
just piling sand back up.
Sure. Yeah.
Are there plans to dredge the lake?
Yes, thank you. I can't believe I got this far without talking about the
Seagulls are standing.
Yes. So we're in active conversations again through this 3-party agreement with the county of Monmouth. Monmouth County is in a position to assist us with some dredging. They have said that they will. It's not, I don't want to give anyone the perception that it is that full lake dredge. I think of it more as spot dredging, which is not ineffective, but it's not necessarily scooping out 3 feet of the lake from west to east. What it will do is create a greater capacity in the areas where it has gotten so sediment filled, remove some of the sand that was additionally impacted from the storm. It provides us with greater protection, so that as the storm waters are coming and that rain flow is coming in, we do have a bigger bathtub, for lack of a better word. There are challenges that come along with that. in that if you are just creating a deeper bathtub without addressing the drainage, which is again that pipe to the ocean, you could see that as it raises, it could come out the catch basins into the streets. Typically that happens when you build a berm with the dredged material, which is a solution I think has been discussed in the past. Dredge out the lake, put it on the banks, make it a grassy mound. That's where you really need to re-engineer your catch basins so that you're not just seeing that water go right out into the streets, into your yard, into your basement. So, but dredging is part of the solution that we're talking about with state and county. Yes, ma'am.
When they did dredge part of the lake,
Yeah.
when it was very low, they piled all of that, the sand around, which is part of the problem. Nothing would grow there
Sure.
afterward. They're going to have to put topsoil or something in there.
And that's part of the mulching that I talked about. Yeah, in order to get anything other than dune grass to grow there, the soil's gonna have to be a lot more friendly to plants than what it is.
Cousin, thank you for putting up with our frustrations and,
No,
and.
I'm Irish.
I'd like, I mean, there's a couple more questions, but we have so many more things we have to cover besides the lake. Is there any really critical lake matters that we haven't discussed yet?
Well,
Yeah.
I'd like just to have one question, because I'd like to know in terms of the mechanics of how we do things. When I went to a meeting and spoke to Paul Calabrese directly, in terms of Silver Lake at the time, about going directly across Ocean Avenue, particularly while everything was torn up pretty badly, and putting the outflow pipe right there, he said that wasn't a good solution, because there'd be no assurances that a gate valve or anything would hold up under those conditions, and the fact that there's a lot of turbulence and movement of the materials. And I know people in the engineering field also, and they talked about ripraps, and I think there's another term for it, I can't remember the name, different solutions, and that was the path of least resistance to go right back out in the ocean again. Is it possible that we consult different engineers for solutions? Is it possible that maybe the other towns don't view the outflow pipe there as really a great solution? Maybe that's their hesitancy, or are there any variables like that?
Not my experience, you know, again, because when we meet with the other towns, we're meeting also with their engineers. I don't think any of the towns have the same engineer right now. So, you know, and obviously, a lot of this is calling all ideas. But, you know, part of what Mark spoke to earlier that I gotta tell you is part of my approach, at least in the recovery of this storm, and getting us moving forward again as a town, is that adage of let not the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know, I can hope for good, I can hope for perfect, I can pray that we're gonna get all the money for the perfect solution, but if I can do something good, and I can do something functional, and that means more immediate, I'm not gonna sacrifice the good to wait for perfect. So this is a solution, it's a good solution, it's one that we believe engineering will work. It's one that's been endorsed by our neighboring towns, and that we are receiving very positive feedback from the state. Yes?
Just
I'm
a
sorry.
quick question. If, you know, the town has a to-do list, so we have the top 10 to-do list. We have Silver Lake, we have the pavilion. Where is Lake Como?
Sure. Actually, I can tell you that specifically. You are right now my second bullet point of 22 bullet points that I meet on weekly with my engineer, the Department of Public Works, and my police department. So, you know, I talk about this issue several times a week. We are working on it consistently. I've had more meetings on this topic with members of state and county in the last 2 months than I have in any other issue. So, you know, I don't think you're looking for the facetious answer of my second bullet point, but just from my sheet today, I know that's where it is, so that's where we're talking about it.
You had to buy a board or buy a block.
I think it's a great
You
suggestion.
raise a lot of money with the buy a board.
It is.
Is it possible to do buy a block or build a block?
Sure it is. I think it's a great suggestion, the one I had not thought of walking in here, so.
Well,
Yes, sir.
The 1.5 million.
Yeah.
How long, do we have an idea how long the project will take?
We have been working with the Department of Environmental Protection to tee up any permitting issues that will be needed. So there are several permit issues that will be needed. We need to do a waterfront development permit, which is whenever you're touching a waterfront area like the beach. Lake Como is it's on the registered Rossi list. I hate these acronyms, I'm sorry to add bureaucracy to the measure, but it's the Recreational Open Space Act inventory. So we deal with that arm of DEP, we get a permit for that. We've had conversations with all of these departments to make sure that they know the area in which we are going and what we expect. And I can tell you, again, through the relationships we've developed since the storm, every permit we've applied for has been extremely expedited, usually being turned around in about 2 weeks.
And once we get that permit, how long is the actual work? You know, how long that takes? There's got to be a labor estimate if they came up with the 1.5 million.
There is. It's approximately a 2-month work plan, and that's off the top of my head. I'd have to refresh my notes to get more exact than that.
Peter has all that information, you can share it.
Yeah.
All of it's in his portfolio.
Beach replenishment? Should
Yeah,
I?
sure, yeah.
Okay. At long last, beach replenishment has come to Belmar. The way the contracts were divvied up by the federal government, we were included in the Manasquan set. So what started in Manasquan is ending in Belmar. You probably felt the frustration as much as I did as I saw the North contract making great progress, and I was so, where are the pumps? That was the separate contract that started, I believe, in Long Branch and worked down to Avon. They've hit Belmar. They're on the beach right now, and the 2 days I've been down there, they're pumping. It's good quality sand. I have a handful of them on my desk. I should have brought in so that you can see it. It's not particularly granular. A lot of the complaints that I've heard about the last beach replenishment was that it smelled. And it was particularly dark. It took a long time to bleach out. So as beach replenishment was taking its time, getting to Belmar, I was getting more and more nervous as we approach the summer season. What I can tell you is that we've walked the beaches where they've been as recently as 2 weeks after pumping. This is a sand product they're harvesting from a different area. They're harvesting off of Sandy Hook. There's no sulfur smell. It's a nice sandy color. It will continue to get whiter as it bleaches on the beach. It's not rocky under your feet. And we're getting a lot of it. We're getting a lot of sand. They're starting at the arches, obviously just past the arches in Spring Lake, and they're going to work northward. They're stopping at 9th Avenue, and then they're going to demobilize back through Spring Lake. What's nice about being at the end of the contract, aside from them making me nauseous to my stomach about them taking so long, is that any extras in the contract, so they bought sand. They bought a lot of sand. And any sand that they didn't use further south ends up in Belmar. So we're going to get more, which is great. I mean, that adds to our storm protection, that adds to our beachfront protection. It gives us more sand to play with when we create those berms again next season. So again, there's a safety perimeter set up around the pumping. For the purpose of walking on the beach or surfing, there's a 1,000-foot perimeter, and that's because of the pumps and the lines and the boats. On the beach itself, around the basket, is how I like to think of it, there's a 300-foot perimeter, and that's because of the munitions that can sometimes get dredged up out of the harvest area. They're finding lots of munitions from World War I, World War II. And so that basket is there to catch the munitions as they come through.
I know it's for fish.
But you can see how happy the seagulls are right now, right? Because the beach, the boardwalk is within the 300-foot safety area, while they are pumping, while they're putting all that water and sand through the baskets, the boardwalk will be closed. We don't expect that to be all day, every day. It's when the baskets are operating so that we can maintain the safety perimeter. Our police department is working with the contractor to secure those areas, but we ask for your patience. You might see your favorite block of boardwalk shut down for several hours a day. Okay. We expect their work plan to take them to about April 17th. It's a straight shot in Belmar, so we expect it to go pretty quickly. So by Memorial Day, that will be nicely dried out, leveled, and good to go. Any questions about beach replenishment? Okay. I'm not running, I'm going to my notes in the back, so I have something I wanted to show all of you about.
Did you finish on the water mains, or?
No, that's what I'm coming to get, actually. I wanted you to all see something.
That must be from my hot water heater.
That's from in front of my house.
This is a section of water main. So all that brown water you've experienced over the years, this is it. So this is a typical section of a main as we are going through and cleaning the pipes. As you know, you all have that bypass laid down your street because we have two-phase operation happening. And I'm going to pass these around so that you guys can kind of take a look I color-coded them because it helps me understand. So when we approached the work at the south end of town, as we refer to it, the south end water infrastructure improvements, what we knew early on, excuse me, David, I need my folder. All right, so what we knew early on was that the south end was going to be a particular challenge to us because water mains that can be cleaned and relined typically have to be at least 6 inches in diameter. Because in your neighborhood, many of you have undersized mains. You have mains that are 4 inches. And while we could try to clean and reline them, it's really not the most efficient infrastructure for us to have for houses in the 21st century. And so if we're going to make this investment, let's do it the right way. And if there is existing 4-inch lines, let's upsize them to 8-inch mains. So the paper that you have going around, yellow refers to lining, orange refers to replacement. Those two projects, those two contracts combined total $1.7 million. So you have two contractors you see in your neighborhood a lot. You've got Metra. Metra is doing the lining, and you have MSP. MSP is doing the new main installation. Those two things together provide for new water infrastructure all at the south end. What I can tell you is that when they're done cleaning a line, what I'd like to point out, what we're finding, that's good news about this pipe is good. If you look at it past the corrosion, that's a strong pipe. It's a very solid pipe. The baskets clean out all of this rust. They flush it until it runs clear, and then they pull through a concrete kind of suction cup. It's kind of cool. I encourage you to try to take a look. Don't get in that hole. Do not get in that hole. Please, we've had people try. They pull through this concrete suction cup. It lines this strong pipe with a thin layer of concrete, essentially gives you a new pipe. Why we were able to do so much work down there is that the lining essentially produces a new pipe that has the lifespan of a new pipe at about half the cost. So what we were able to do, instead of just handling 1 or 2 streets, which is typically how the borough has approached water infrastructure, we went in, we replaced everything, we paved, we went back to, tried to get everything back. That costs about $160 a foot. By going at it this way, with this method, we were able to cover double the amount of streets. So it allowed us to get essentially new, like new because of the concrete, water pipes to you. Now, until the work is completely done, we are a closed system. Okay, so what that means is until the work is completely done, you still might experience intermittent discoloration. The water is safe. We're continually testing it. It's just,
I would have to object.
Okay.
What came out of my pipes yesterday was safe, but.
well, no. I'm not saying, because I'm a mom. I'm not saying when that discoloration starts, pour a glass of drink. I'm not saying that because I wouldn't give it to my 5-year-olds. Okay. But what I'm saying is, it is of a safe quality. Will not make you sick. But you want to flush your pipes, you want to make sure that you're getting that through, okay? Until we finish our work and close the system back up, you will see some of that intermittent discoloration. When we're all done and the system is sealed again, we're going to flush everything and then go back to normal, new normal, with cleaner water. All right, so that's, again, that is a major investment that is happening right now on your streets. And I know it's inconvenient, we're blocking driveways, we're shutting down streets. I think we are going to go, I'm trying to picture my notepad in my office. We are scheduled to go through the second week in May.
Okay, so we all next month.
But we're trying to accelerate. Part of the challenge right now, if you see me running around your neighborhoods like a crazy person, it's because we've challenged the contractor to get as much done as possible. That's why there's so many roads open right now in your area. So they're being very aggressive. We're having the 2 contractors coordinate to try to make sure that they're working smartly as they're going through the neighborhood. But again, I know it's inconvenient. So thank you for your patience, and we're trying to get it out of there as soon as possible. Sir?
Excuse me, the above ground diversion of the water is also creating a lot of wastewater. There's a lot of overflow. Is the town absorbing the cost of that?
That water does not run through your meters.
Okay.
okay? You are not absorbing the cost of that. Certainly, I would have picked a much milder winter to have initiated an infrastructure project of this size. We've had a lot of we've had a lot of frozen bypass, we've had a lot of frozen services. The way to mitigate that, and I hear you, I hate wasting water. The only way to mitigate that is to run the taps in your house. They recommend about a pencil thickness on those cold nights, on at least one faucet in the main room. That really helps that water keep moving. You're not paying for that money, you're not paying for that water, and it helps the project move along much more swiftly.
Is that why the water is running
Yes.
outside?
Yeah, part of it, we're just trying to force it through, because those frozen services aren't fun to wake up to when you need to shower and get to work.
They use the brown water trying to take.
Nor is the brown water, which is hopefully short-lived. Okay. Sir, did you have a question? I thought I was saying here. Okay. So that's the water infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
My pleasure. And
Can I ask, is the only thing left from an agenda point of view, and like I said, we will have question and answer at the end, but the community policing, or is there any other?
I want to tell you, and I won't take longer than a minute. I want to talk to you about the lighting on Ocean Avenue.
Right.
So this is the lighting that you're familiar with, that is all along the boardwalk. It's been a point of continual frustration for us as we've seen lights out at night or lights on during the day. Globes filling up with water, and then finials starting to drop. So I had a fairly intense meeting with the manufacturer, who I got to tell you is stepping up. Cyclone is the manufacturer. They've been down now about 6 times, and we are now. I'm going to leave here and drive the beachfront, but when I checked last night, every light was on at night. What happened was that there are some inherent design defects in this. It allowed water to accumulate in the globe. That was ending up with some of the lights shorting out. We have now reached a point where we have tightened everything that had the leaks. We have made sure everything is lit. I'm still not happy. Some of it it's not a design that's functional for a beachfront. What I asked them was make it safe from a public safety standpoint. I want those lights on every night, and I don't want any more of these little balls dropping onto the boardwalk. All these balls have been removed. Actually, I just saw one today, which annoyed the heck out of me. I'm going to go back and get it. So those balls have been removed. Lights are all lit. So from a public safety, I'm okay for the moment. That contractor's coming back in September, and they're replacing every single fixture on the beachfront. Every single one, at their cost.
Good.
Okay. So the design defects that we unfortunately experienced will be completely replaced. It also has a better arc of lighting on each one. So we're going to see a better span of lighting on the road and the boardwalk. So I just want to let you know that was coming too. And again, we held them accountable, and they're coming back in their process. Okay. Great.
Thank you, Colin.
My pleasure.
While we're talking about lighting,
Yeah.
since Miguel took out the telephone pole that had the street light across the front of the house, you haven't put it back yet. No one's put it back yet.
That's just a rumor.
Does that
but
belong
that's
to?
not-
Because the car underneath it was like gone.
That's Miguel, he'll
What corner are you on?
Surfing north.
Okay. I'll
So
take
that
a
one,
look at it.
it just never came back, so I don't know what it was, JCPL or you.
It's likely JCP&L, but I can discuss that with you.
Well, because the pole's not there to put it back on, so.
This may seem like a small thing, but we never got weed trash cans along the lake
Yes.
again.
Yes, you do.
Because we did last summer and
Yes.
we had
They'll be back.
every single day we picked up trash.
No, I hear you,
all
and
in front
they're
of the
actually
house.
high on my list.
Yeah,
We're-
that's, yeah,
things
it
have to
seems
be
like
back
small,
by this
yeah,
season. No, that's not small.
important. That's important.
That's not small.
Thanks.
Okay. I have my card here, I have the mayor's card here. Don't hesitate, please grab it, email me, give me a call. Happy to talk about all the suggestions for improvements that we can do. And I assume the best way to keep in touch with the group is generals as we're working on the development of the grants and funding sources and whatnot. I'll be in close contact with both Peter and Mark. But if you want a direct line to me, there it is. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay. You want to take some of these maps? Or?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Colin.
All right, we originally weren't gonna do this, but since the introductions haven't been made, we wanted to reintroduce the community policing program. Is that the right name? Is that what you guys use, or what's the?
Community policing officers.
Community policing. Okay, so there's a program in town, and we've had times when it started, and then it didn't happen, and then it started up again, and we've had it at our house and at different people's houses, but we want to introduce the community police officers, and what I want to say before we get started, because I know we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, just talking about some of the issues, and you know, everyone's got different bugaboo that bother them, right? If you could give us some guidelines, this is going to be a cooperative, collective. The police aren't going to be there at all times and aren't going to, you're going to hear that you're the best eyes, ears, and police force that's out there, keeping them informed, because they do not have a lot of police officers here in town, contrary to what people think. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about the size and things like that. But I got a sense out of the last meeting that there was a lot of anger that was being directed towards the police department. I mean, it's let's put it this way, frustration over the situation, then directed towards the police as if they're part of the problem and not really the only solution that we have. So I just ask that when we talk about this, try to do it from a constructive point of view and not realize the guys you're talking to are the guys you need to fix the problem and help us, and not the ones who are peeing on your lawn, okay? And make that distinction, because I walked away from that meeting and I just think that we need to ally with the police, not create friction with them as neighbors. So with that, I'm sorry,
Sergeant Todd Lee.
Todd Lee, and
Patrolman Nick Walsiver.
okay.
I essentially have the area from 17th Avenue to North Boulevard, Ocean Avenue to B Street. So the majority of where you all live is what I have. Patrolman Walsifer has all of 16th Avenue. So that easterly part of 16th Avenue is the part that he has, that he would be concerned about. That is why he is here tonight. I don't know how you want to do this right now. I know you guys have been here.
Why don't you explain your view of what your job is with our neighborhood? What do you see your job is?
As a community policing officer or as a police officer?
Yes.
Community police law. What the community police program, what's expected of us as residents and you as our contact point?
For the community policing officer, we act as a liaison, okay? And what that means is, if someone's breaking into your front door, you don't call me, you call the police department. Whoever's on duty will respond. If you're having a problem with your neighbor that you really don't think the police presence there could solve, but however you need to speak to someone about it to get some other perspectives on it, give me a call, send me an email. As a group, it's not a forum to take care of, my neighbor doesn't ever brings in his garbage cans. That's not what it is designed for. However, if that's something that you need addressed, we can address that. We can address that. And not necessarily it's coming from you, but in a group, hey, I can stop by there one day, say, hey, look, find out why he doesn't bring in his garbage cans. For everybody. That's the purpose of the community policing area, is to address your concerns, major concerns about what's going on. I've heard you guys tonight not necessarily harp, I'm sorry, discuss, and I feel your frustrations. I can see it in the way you sit. I can see it in the way you talk. I can see it in your faces that you feel like you've been neglected. And some of you from my last meeting have expressed those concerns also. You felt like you're neglected. Well, I want to tell, I mean, we're out there. We're out there. You may not see us, but we're out there. One of the things that I do is when I'm on patrol, is I try and drive down every street in the entire town. So for the 2 minutes that it takes me to drive past your house, if you're not looking out your window at that exact time, you're gonna miss me. So, but we're there. We're there. One of the things that I do is, since you're my community policing area, is I go down and I'll sit. I'll sit in my patrol car, especially this past winter. When it's milder out, like an evening like tonight, I park my car and I walk. Sometimes it's 9 o'clock at night, sometimes it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But that's something that I've encouraged all of my guys to do. Also, is to stop in their community policing area. Either park and write your report, or go ahead, park and take a walk. And that way we can see what's going on, and we can hear things and listen to things. And we've gotten actually a couple of things accomplished in doing that. So, I know you've all been here for a long time already, so I think it's what, 8:30 already? I don't know how you guys want to proceed with this. You guys want to ask a question? Okay.
So I'm sorry if I'm very tired. I've been in the hospital with my son-in-law all day today. I'm kind of beat. Just an incident that happened, and as we met last year, we had the meeting and whatever. I am totally frustrated at our end of town. There was a car parked in front of my house from September. It's still there. It hasn't moved. It went through all the snowstorms. Nobody took the snow off it. And I'm wondering, geez, if the police are riding around, if you were patrolling my neighborhood, when you notice that car hasn't moved in 6 months, hasn't moved. So I called Drew. I was just kind of frustrated. I called Drew. I said to him, this car hasn't moved. So maybe the next day, later, I don't know, within a short period of time. Police car pulled up, parked on the wrong side, in front of the car. Good, be obvious. Didn't knock on any doors, as far as I could see, because I did see him come up. Put a note, I guess a warning that the car would be towed. Now, when I was in business and I signed contracts with clients, I had to follow up. That was part of my business, was always followed up. I don't know if anybody followed up on that car, because it went through some more snow and it hasn't moved and it's not towed. It's still there. Who's it belong to? And I'm sure there's cars like this all over town. It's not just our end. And my question is if I had a regular policeman going around my neighborhood all the time, he would have known, or she, that car hasn't moved. He would have known that the 2 girls in the rooming house over here are shooting up every night, because I see them out my kitchen window. It's just kind of frustrating. Janice, I have to ask you, what end of town do you live in?
I'm in what's called Rhode Island Point.
All right,
Just
just
off
down
of
the other
16th.
end. Okay, so you're our new councilwoman now, and you are not familiar with the dynamics of the quote South End and what we have to put up with, and the real part of it is coming. It's coming. And you could go by on a Saturday afternoon and say, gee, nothing's going on here. You can come by a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I can't have the kids on the porch because somebody's saying what he's gonna do to this room, various other things.
We ride our bikes quite often in the
It
summertime,
is,
all over
yeah,
town, so.
and you gotta live there to really appreciate the fun that we put up with. And
It's so exciting.
It is, I've learned so much. And it's just been so frustrating, and I'm not asking you, I'm begging you, please, can you please watch the neighborhood? There are a lot of us who live alone, and we're almost afraid to call the police because winter rentals, and I remember Kenny always saying this, and I know this to be true too. Winter rentals, who comes around and rents in the winter? There are people whose houses are being constructed, and you'll find some nice people who rent. The majority of them are absolute trouble. Most of them Section 8s, they're trouble. And the landlords who rent don't give a damn. They don't care, they get their money. They don't care about us who live there. And it is a problem. You're afraid to call the police. I can call the police in the summer. I am not afraid because they're kids. They're having a few beers. They made a lot of noise. They're not going to bother you. These guys, afraid to call the police. This guy across the street from me, he's got his windows blacked out all winter. What the hell's going on in there? you know, the door opens a little bit. I mean, it's just, and you're kind of nervous being there alone and calling police in the winter. And that's why I say, I'm begging you, please, just kind of watch what's going on. Our end of town had a huge drug problem last summer. I sat on my porch and watched the dealer across the street. Couldn't call the police, I couldn't get a plate number, you know why? They were coming buying skateboards, they were coming buying bikes, and they were in and out. I know this guy, I know him so well, and if I see him this summer, you're gonna hear from me, and I'll nail him this summer.
Please do.
I absolutely will. I mean, it was, and even Frank had said to me, you know, there's a lot of drugs in the South End this summer. Frank even warned me. So, and then this is coming, but it's the winter that's really frightening, because it's dark. You don't know who these people are. You know, we just happen to live in a wonderful town, and we have these winter rentals who come in, and they are not savory people. 30 years of watching them, they're not.
You know, it's been that way for 30 years.
It has been, I know.
I mean, ever since I've been down there, it's been that way.
Yeah.
Rentals, I have some rentals myself, so, you know, I try to get decent people, but you can't even get decent people anymore because the guy next to you is renting out the bums.
There you go.
Every mama Luke that comes down the street.
Todd, I have a question, and if you can't answer it right now, then maybe, you know, you can share the information and I can disseminate it. But do you have any sort of like handout or flyers that do's and don'ts, or how the community policing program works, or how we're supposed to organize as a neighborhood, or tips that we all should be following? I mean, I appreciate that you're assigned that, but that's all like kind of you're talking about tonight, is you're assigned that area and call me. I mean, but isn't there more structure to this program? I mean, there used to be. There used to be regular meetings that you came to a homeowner's house, you took down the issues, you received the complaints, you said you're gonna look into things, not you, but the town. Isn't there something more than what you're talking about right now? That, or am I missing something? I'm expecting more and it's just not there.
Well, I mean, as I said before, there is that follow-up. I mean, some of the things that I know that we discussed last year, especially about like speeding, people speeding. I myself, as a supervisor, I've specifically assigned guys to certain streets during certain times. Now, you guys, right now on duty, okay, Officer Walsifer came in on his own time to speak to you tonight. Right now on duty, there's 2 of us. I'm here. So that means there's 1 guy in town.
There's only 3. All of them.
There's only 2 of us in the whole town right there.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay, there's only 2 of us on duty right now. I'm here.
I just wanted to address about that parking complaint. Sometimes, like you said, it should have been a follow-up. That officer might have went on to a midnight shift and didn't get back to it, and forgot about it. Call the station, don't call Drew. Call the station. Don't be afraid to call the desk. That's what you pay taxes for. We get that all the time. There's a car parked in front of a house for a month. Call us. We gotta put a warning on it for 48 hours. If that plate is legally, not expired, it's a legal plate, the plate might come back to another town in Edison. We're not gonna tow that car right then and there. It might be busy. We'll give them that benefit. We give a 48-hour, we'll put a window on it. If that car ain't moved in 3 or 4 days, call the station back, because that officer might have went to another shift and forgot all about to come back. So it does happen. It wouldn't happen with me. I always go back, but them calls are all the time with a parked car. Secondly, community policing. I got 16th Avenue. We got group rentals mixed in with the tenants, that are the people that live there year round. I will go over to them group rentals in the beginning and tell them what's going on.
We'd like that.
Oh, we
So-
love that. We love that.
I go over there and try to soften it up, but that doesn't mean they're not gonna get tickets, and that's what we try to do from the start. So that's community policing right there. So 16th Avenue, yes, I stopped a lot up and down that block. Certain key point people I meet with all the time, they're like, that group rental, we had major problems in the past with the houses. I'll go over to the houses right from the start and give the ride at.
The zero tolerance ordinance is still in effect, right?
Yeah, there's a zero tolerance, but there's also, we're not gonna, there's also common sense. We're not gonna go down there and ride them for nothing, but we're gonna keep an eye on all these guys. So, yes, it's $0. But we also just don't want people calling, walking the boardwalk that don't even live in town, say, hey, they're making noise, or, you know, and it's not a real big deal. So, that's the community policing. So there's key point people I meet with all the time on each different block. They'll tell me, hey, what's going on? If there's drug activity, you call the police department. We'll come down and make a police information report on it. The detectives will start watching that house. So don't be scared to call us, because at that point, we just can't kick the door in. We're gonna have to start watching the house, and we're not gonna start watching it with a marked unit. So you don't even know if we're sitting up there. You gotta have people outside, because once there's a marked unit, you're not gonna see that
Well, of
activity
course,
going on.
you know, hey, you're welcome to come sit upstairs in my house if you want. I'm gonna get coffee.
We got a small force, like the sergeant said, there's 2 guys on the road.
Wow.
So we can't dedicate a 4 or 5 hour window to that one call, because you have calls coming in. And whether it's an accident, there's a car tied up for an hour. Whether it's a domestic, whether it's an arrest, there's 2 hours, or you get a DWI, that's a 3-hour report. Time you get them in the headquarters office, so now there's one guy on the road. So we can't dedicate that kind of time, but we can, if there's a serious problem, we can start bringing guys in overtime, or what have you, to sit on them houses outside. We're a small agency. Or specials coming in, specials, or we got more specials than we do regulars in this town. So we're a unique town.
When did the specials start? Memorial Day?
Around Memorial Day, around Memorial Day. If it starts to get nice out sooner, hopefully, they'll bring them in earlier, especially on the weekends. They'll bring a couple more on Friday, Saturday nights. They'll add to it.
And we utilize it pretty much year round. St. Patty's Day parade coming in, before Christmas, we do utilize them year round. When we need them, when we need the manpower.
The week of Thanksgiving, they were here. Christmas week, the week of Christmas and New Year's Eve, they're here. St. Patrick's Day, they're here. We do utilize them on certain days that we know that we're gonna be busy.
I do want to comment too, before I heard somebody say the South End don't get the police response. I will tell you, there's more officers in the South End than there is in the North End.
Well, that's because we have a little trouble.
Walking beats from 16 over. A lot of bike patrols, there's a lot over in that town, on that end of town, so, you guys are getting covered, especially in the summer months.
Yeah, summer is season, yes.
Surf Avenue between 17th and 20th is a drag strip, a little drag strip. Putting down some kind of temporary speed bumps.
Okay. I used to have 10th Avenue as a community policing zone.
It's a main thoroughfare. I understand.
Okay, I used to have 10th Avenue.
14, 16.
They actually discussed having temporary speed bumps, or speed bumps instead of, that's how they actually wound up with those little roundabouts. They talked about either doing speed bumps all the way down the street, or those rumble strips all the way down the street. To tell you the truth, they don't work. They don't work. The speed bumps, I've gone to a couple of classes and I've researched a couple of products. All they do is they say how fast I can go without bottoming them out in my car. If they're truly drag racing and speeding down,
You're just looking for
if it's the
parking.
kids, the speed bumps are actually gone, they don't do much. The rumble strips, you'll hate in the middle of the night. You will.
Well, surf, we don't need the rumble strips on Surf Avenue in the middle of the night, because between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, the shooting patrol goes home. And nothing against Frank and DJs, believe me, I really like you guys, all right, you're great people. But between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, when all the drunks are coming from the pizza joints, marching down 18th Avenue, 19th Avenue, and Surf Avenue, with their English graduate, English lit, and you really want to have your windows open instead of running air conditioning. And again, my son's a police officer in New Brunswick. They got 147 guys in the department. Sometimes there's only 3 of them that cover the whole city.
Right.
So I know where you guys are coming from, but it's, you know, it's, again, it's that 3 to 5. We're leaving TJ's, nothing against, I mean, TR's, nothing against TR. Nothing against any of the guys that kids today have no manners, no love.
So
No
what,
respect, no respect, period, for you, me, anybody in this room.
I agree. I agree. One of the things that, I don't know if it necessarily helps or not, is we just, do you remember the old speed sign, the radar sign?
Yeah.
Told you how fast you went.
Yeah.
We have finally just obtained a new one for the town. And it's one of the things I'm gonna start implementing down in that area.
One of the guys that worked this summer, one of the older specialists, been around a long time, big guy. People sleeping in the cars, come down Surf Avenue, and he wrote tickets all morning.
And that's why he's assigned that also.
He comes in at 5 in the
He
morning.
comes in at
just for
5
the-
o'clock.
He works every Friday, Saturday, yes.
Big guy.
Yeah.
Jim Burdick.
Uh,
And he comes in sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's all he does is go up and down.
And I don't really care, they sleep in the car, it's what they throw out of the car.
Oh, no.
Any other questions for the officer?
Well,
I just want to reiterate what he said. I live on 18th Avenue, and we basically have the same problem. It's when they leave DJs at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, my flag, my furniture, and my flowers. Not mine, my wife, she plans it. If she was here, she'd be more adamant than me, but she does the work. It's really the quality of life. I mean, that's why we came to Belmar, to have a better quality of life. And in the summertime, on the weekends, they do take that away. And I have called and I have reported it, and after the fact, you guys come and you're very nice. And I have even found some of my chairs on other people's property, just drunk. I don't think this is the DJ's crowd, but the people that are.
No, the people come down and rent, they don't have a chair, they take yours.
Yeah, exactly. And my furniture's not that good, I don't even know why they take it, but they do.
It's better than what they get.
Okay.
But it's not something, and we do, is there anything you can suggest? Should I leave the lights on? Should I turn the lights off? Should I put music, you know?
Well, when I used to live on Ocean Avenue, and I had all my furniture with cable running through everything.
Yeah,
And it happens. I mean, I had lions cemented down, they were gone in the morning. It happens. They're gonna try to get whatever they can get going home.
Okay, so Officer Lee, Officer Walsifer, could we at least agree, maybe we would get back together like the June timeframe, early, mid-June?
We usually get together before Memorial.
Okay, so we'll try to organize something for before Memorial Day. You know, maybe we could come with like sort of a plan or an agenda or some information that we'd like to maybe communicate. You know, identifying some of the potentially problematic group rentals in the area that you become aware that these houses typically, you don't know until after Memorial Day whether or not it's gonna be a problem or not, but I think that would be something that all of us would like to know, and maybe you could preemptively speak to houses that might become problems before they are, and then it wouldn't be having to call, and it would be preemptive in nature as opposed to responsive.
Right.
So that'd be great. Before we go, there's gonna be a question and answer that we'll open to, but I did wanna, and we didn't do this before, and Colleen, thank you so much for all you did in standing in for Matt tonight. We have Janice Blackburn, one of our council members here, and we didn't do an introduction of Janice earlier. I don't know if everybody knows her, and then Jim Bean, and out in the back, another council person. And I wanted to thank both of you guys for coming tonight. Hopefully the message in some way, whether it's through the actual meeting or whatever other agendas that you guys might have, that some of the things that get expressed here tonight somehow get back to the council and get communicated, and some of these things get the priority and the messages get delivered, this was a group of 50, I can tell you, probably got cut down at least by 20 when they heard Matt wasn't coming. I would say at least 20 people that were traveling from other parts of the state chose not to travel after I sent that out. Like I said, I think, and there's a number of people who had to leave, and I'll give you an example, the Gerard family that was right here, although it was just Lori and Steve tonight, they represent probably at least 20 people, right? That I'm sitting there, so so all 20 couldn't get here. But, you know, just to get an idea of the numbers we're talking about here, we're sitting, I counted 50 tonight. This is more representative of probably extended families that are, you know, magnitude 5, 10 times that. I wouldn't even, that's not even an exaggeration, so.
Well, Mark, I know that Brian, the governor, is also very concerned with your area of town too. He is not here tonight because Jane is back in the hospital. She was taken in by the first aid, probably not the first aid squad, but she's taken in by the ambulance on Thursday. So he is busy. Yes.
Jane has been such a positive influence in town, the volunteering she's done, the community stuff. I mean, her inability to do that, I know, is weighing heavy on her. So everyone, you know, think of Jane and in her prayers that she, hopefully, we hope for the best, but it's been a tough go for Brian, and for him to remain and do the council duties while he's trying to tend to his ill wife is just, you know, I mean, the appreciation, and I'm just doing this like kind of ad hoc, trying to get us organized to just get one thing taken care of. I've got a newfound respect for the people who volunteer to do council, run for council. I've seen people get another say, you chose to do it, you know, it's your job, you know. What's the pay annually?
I never asked.
It's $3,000 a year, so it's not even $300 a month. And you have people in your face saying, you know, it's your job and you get paid to do this, right? As if they're talking to their plumber or electrician or something. But no, I do have newfound respect for Colleen. You know, at times we all have frustrations with any of the council members, and you know, although I consider Matt a friend, I said to him tonight, I said, we don't agree on everything all the time, but same goes for my wife, and we're still married. So the best thing to do is have some patience, have some tolerance, you know, understand both sides of issues, and just try to work towards a resolution as opposed to just a complaint. Because what I do, I manage people where I work, and when I have meetings, and you get a lot of people who start bitching and complaining in meetings, that's okay. But when you're done bitching, what do you want to see happen? What exactly do you want done? Because if you can't articulate even something that resembles a solution, don't bitch. Because you're of no use. You're negative value and negative contribution. So that's all I ask, is that we as a group, and we're all not going to agree. At some point, DJs is okay, DJs is middle. I hate DJs, right? And amongst all of us, our tolerance levels might waver depending on how close we are to DJs or how much of a problem it is for us. But just try to come with alternatives and options that you think might work, because it's easy to complain about something, but it's hard to fix something. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I try not to just say it doesn't work and you need to go fix it, Colleen. And don't ask me how, that's why we pay you. The big bucks, right?
Oh, yeah.
You stepped into a job you never thought was going to
True. True. Could I offer just real quickly
Sure,
two
yeah.
things? I did see Jane this morning, and while it's certainly not a great situation, she is stable. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that. And then two, the mayor asked me to extend, this room isn't great, but it is your community room. So for any of the meetings that you have that you want to use this space, don't hesitate to let us know. I'll make it available.
Okay. All right, and thank you, Colleen. You did a great job tonight. We appreciate it. Are there any other questions about our burgeoning organization or group? For the people that weren't there a couple weeks ago, we're not Republican, we're not Democratic. You know, I mean, we're pro Belmar, we're pro South End. Again, you could have political and philosophical disagreements between us, but I haven't. Is there anyone here who doesn't think the lake needs to get dealt with? I mean, when can you get 50 people together on anything and complete unanimity? Any other questions? Yeah.
I got this note in my mailbox to come to the meeting, about the meeting tonight. Is there another way I could get notified?
Oh,
Prior to the day of the
Your
meeting?
email, write it on the back of there, I'll put you in the link.
my wife.
Oh, you
They
got
live-
it. Are
they
you
live in
doing
Yale.
that? Yeah, here's my card.
Mark, one of the things.
Anybody else?
Oh, thank you.
That way we can point
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I work at the library.
Yeah, oh, okay.